I am Sharon Holmes. Welcome to the She Shines podcast, where we are empowering you to embrace every facet of who you are, helping you to develop a beautiful balance in life, and encouraging women everywhere to shine. You can follow the She Shines podcast on iTunes, Google Play Music, YouTube, Spotify, or wherever you tune in to your favorite podcasts. Get in on the conversation. Join the sisterhood at facebook.com/groups/She Shines podcast. So get ready. The She Shines podcast starts right now. So everyone wants to have a winning season, right? I know I do, don't you? A winning season where everything you do works and it works right the first time. A season where your successes come one right after another. And you never have to deal with failure. You never have to deal with defeat. You never have to deal with inadequacy. Sounds like a beautiful dream, doesn't it? And really it is. So in real life, this is how real life goes. You have some wins. We all have some wins. And if you're lucky, you get to have lots of wins in your lifetime. But also in reality, you're going to take some L's. I mean, there's just going to be some losses that you're going to have to deal with. And I hate to admit it. I know no one likes to admit, but there are some things that we've tried. There are some things that we wanted to do. We set out to do it. We prepared for it. And in the end, it just did not work. We might have thought it was a good idea at the time, and we put in the work. Now, I don't think that you can ever win without putting in work. So we do that. We put in the work. We dump our money into it because anything that you believe in, if you tell me you believe in something but you don't put your money behind it, then I don't believe you. So we put our work in and we put our money into these ideas and we stay up late at night thinking and planning and working. And sometimes they say that entrepreneurship is a full-time job. That is false. It is an all-time job because you don't end when the clock hits 5. And so when you're trying to be successful, when you're trying to get whatever your plan is to work out, you stay up late at night. You're working on it. You're trying to figure out the best way to do things. And then you do your fair share of worrying about it, just trying to figure out how to get it to look the way you want it to look, how to get it to be the way you want it to be. And in the end, if we admit it, some of those times we still lost. It did not work. And then the question is, now what am I going to do? So now I've got to go back and I've got to face my family and friends who were rooting for me. And in their rooting for me, that kind of put a little pressure on us because we don't want to let them down. We want to be as successful as they believe that we can be. Sometimes the bank account is empty because we poured everything we've had into that idea or into that dream, trying to make it work. And so now we're not only ashamed to talk about it with our family and friends, but we are busted and disgusted. We're just done. And so usually when that happens, usually when we work really, really hard trying to get something to work and it doesn't work, now this is probably a Sharonism. You got to tell me if I'm on point with this. But this is what I see happening when people try to do something and it doesn't work out. So number one, they continue to pour their time and their money into their loss, whatever it is, because they've invested too much to accept that it's not working. Even after it's obvious that this thing is never going to work, they still put time, money, effort, and energy into it, hoping that one day, by a stroke of luck or genius, it's all going to turn around. And then the second thing I've seen people do is they just give up. They're just like, you know what? I'm never going to try anything else. I'm done. I've done that before. It's never going to happen. I'm just done. And so they spend their whole lives trying not to take another risk, not even a calculated risk. Now, let me tell you, if you're going to take a risk, At least let it be a calculated risk. That's what I kind of support, is taking a calculated risk. I'm not just saying go and invest all of your money into a penny stock you've never heard of because you just think, you feel in your bones that it's going to work. But I'm saying even calculated risks. Some people get so scared from losing that they won't take a risk at all. And so they cling to security for dear life, whatever that security is, whether that security is having $5,000 in the bank just on the side for a rainy day or whatever it is, whether that security is not ever having to feel ashamed in front of their family and friends again, so they'll never do anything that might somehow lead to that. Some people just give up and they live a very safe, very secure, but a very safe life. And then there's a third group of people that I notice that they immediately, after they lose, they immediately go out and try to find something to win. It doesn't matter what it is. It could be the lottery. It could be a large order of fries at Mickey D's. It does not matter. I just lost something and I just need a win. I don't care what it is. I don't care where it is. I don't care how I get it. I just need to win because I need to make up for that loss. And those are the things that I typically see people do when they take losses. So, hey, you know what? I'm not the only person in the world. And I told you this season, we're having a conversation. I want to know what you are used to seeing people do when they take losses. Go to the Facebook page, drop a comment on YouTube, drop a comment. Let us know, let me know, what do you see people doing when they take losses? And we'll just kind of compare our list and see if I might have got one or two of those things right. So we spend a lot of time trying to make up for our losses in different ways. I guess that's my point. We try to deal with loss in different ways. And I think it's because we spend so much time training to be winners. So think about it. When you're in school, or even, in the lower grades, like kindergarten, first grade, second grade, third grade, that's when you hit your spelling bees. That's when they introduce competition to you. And so now you're not just going to school to be a student, but now you've got to be spelling bee champion, or you've got to get really high grades. You've got to get all A's. And I know I suffered from this syndrome for a long time. As a matter of fact, side note, I got my first B in my graduate program after 5 semesters. I got a B in one of my classes, and everything in me wanted to go off. Like when I knew it was coming, it was just, it just drove me nuts. But then I had to talk to myself, hey, Sharon, B's get degrees too. And I had to let that thing go. But because that's what we're trained to do. We were trained to perform and to achieve in school. And don't even get me started on sports. Parents work those little leagues, those peewee leagues like they're the NFL. Do not tell me that there is not money riding on the games when you look at the parents in the stands, because they are training their kids to be winners. And at work, everybody wants to be the boss. Everybody wants to move up to upper level management. We want that corner office with the view. No one ever says, when I grow up, I want to be the lowest man or woman on the totem pole. I want to work in the mail room for the rest of my life. Now, that's not a dig against people who work in the mailroom and enjoy it. There's nothing wrong with that. If that's what you want to do, then do that and be the best at it that you can be. Like Martin Luther King said, if you're going to be a street sweeper, be the best street sweeper so that nobody before you or after you can ever do it any better. So that's fine. But no one has aspirations and dreams of being at the bottom. When we dream, tell the truth, we always want to be on top. Even in the church. Everybody wants to bring the noise. Everybody wants to be the preacher. Everybody wants to be a Joyce Meyer. Everybody wants to be a Creflo Dollar. Everybody wants to be a T.D. Jakes. Nobody wants to be a Hubert Credit. I know you're like, who in the world is Hubert Credit? Well, for your information, he is one of the greatest men that I have ever known and probably will ever meet. He was a true dispenser of knowledge. He was quite a bit older than me. In fact, older than my parents. So when I was in my 20s, he was probably in his 70s or 80s. But he was a dispenser of knowledge and wisdom. Every time you talked to him, there was something you could take away. There was something that he was going to say that was going to inspire you to do something different. Can you imagine a man in his 70s or 80s being able to inspire teenagers? Well, this guy did it. But nobody knew his name. Nobody in the world basically knew his name, only in our little circle. And so isn't he just as valid as, say, a T.D. Jakes who ministers to millions? I would say so. But the point is that nobody knows or wants to be Hubert Credit. They want to be T.D. Jakes because his name is in lights and he has big conferences and he has lots of money and he has his own show. And so that's what we look at. That's what we've been trained to do, is go after being a winner. And in that, we spend so much time training to win that we never even think about learning how to lose. Now, I know you're probably thinking that's because I don't plan to lose. And neither do most people. But my answer to that is exactly. You never plan to lose. And so one day when you do lose, it takes you completely by surprise. Because whether you plan it or not, one day you will lose. It's inevitable. I'm not speaking defeat over your life, so don't get over spiritual on me. But it's just the truth. It will happen. So what do you do when that day comes if you've never anticipated? So I'm not saying that we should be pessimistic and walk around like we're just waiting to lose or waiting, for something terrible to happen. We shouldn't go around never believing in what we set out to do. No, we should actually be positive. We should put our time and energy into things that we do believe will work. We should believe that we can do it. We should believe that we can achieve it. We should believe that we can make it happen. But what I mean by learning to lose is figuring out how not to let a failure be final. What do we do that helps us to get past a loss? Because we know, again, it's coming. So what do we do when we put our eggs in that basket and we lose? How do we lose in such a way that we set ourselves up for the next big win? How do we fall on our feet, in other words? How do we fall so that when we're down there, we're not just tumbling? How do we fall and land on our feet? That's what I mean about learning how to take an L. So let me go ahead and hit you with a few tips. This is what I think. This is just, what's on my mind. The first thing I think is that we should just learn to accept losses as part of the process of winning. Now, not a loss being final, but it's just a part in the process. It's one step in the process sometimes as we move toward winning. So when we do everything perfectly the first time, when we get everything right, it actually robs us of opportunities. We never really learn how to improvise because we never had to. If you had never run out of that one ingredient, you'd never know that you could substitute something else. If you don't lose at one point or another, how do you improve? How do you know that there's a need to improve? Sometimes losing helps us learn how to roll with the punches. You will always be in a state of frantic and in a state of shock if you are not good at thinking on your feet, at least some of the time. We don't learn how to do that when we win and when everything goes perfectly. That only comes when we hit bumps in the road and when we take losses. And when we get to those points, we need to understand that they're just bumps in the road on the way to a win. So learning how to accept losses as a part of the process to winning. That's why we like all the feel-good movies, where there's a ragtag sports team that looks like they're never going to do anything, and somehow, some way, and like they shouldn't even be on the field, but somehow, some way, they pull down a state championship. We fall in love with those movies. We make them box office hits because those movies show us that losses are not the end of us, but they're just a part of the process, just getting us to our point in time where we hit our winning season. So that's my first thing, is just accept it as a part of the process of winning. Don't expect it. Don't go out looking for it. Let me say it like that. Don't go out looking for it, but just accept it as part of the process of winning. And then allow yourself, this is what we don't do a lot of the time, allow yourself to feel the hurt or the disappointment from a loss. It's okay. The world will still be revolving Everything will still go on. Just allow yourself to feel the hurt and disappointment from it. That teaches us that we're still alive after the big failure, after the loss, after it didn't work, because we can feel the pain of that. That feeling lets us know we're still here and we have an opportunity to do something different and an opportunity to do something about that. And what we tend to do is not talk to people about it because we don't want to bring up the fact that something did not work or that we failed. But if you need to talk about it, talk about it. You don't need to necessarily hide your failures, because what happens is you end up hiding from your failures. Instead of just hiding them from others, you hide from them. And sometimes I found this to be true, and this is probably why counseling works. I'm going to throw this in for free, is that sometimes when you talk to other people, it helps you to get clarity on your own situation, even if the person doesn't say a word back to you. If you just talk it out with somebody else sitting in the room, something's going to hit your brain that you never would have come up with if you had avoided the situation altogether. So if you need to talk about a loss, talk about it. It's okay. It's okay to feel the hurt. It's okay to feel frustrated. It's okay to feel bad. It's okay to talk about it. What's not okay is staying there. So it's okay to feel those things. It's okay to experience it. But then we've got to understand that once it's gone or once it didn't work, grieve it and leave it. Simple as that. Grieve it and leave it. It happened. It was terrible, but now that is part of the past. That is not my present, and that is not my future. It's something that happened, but it's not who you are. Failure may be something that happened to you, or it may be something that you experienced, but it ultimately is not who you are. So don't carry that around with you every day, living under a dark cloud because the restaurant you tried didn't work, or because you wanted to get a degree and you were not able to do that because of time or money or other commitments, because you wanted to have children and you never did, because you wanted to get married and you never found that person. Don't take those losses and carry those around with you and clothe yourself with them so that they become the first thing that people see when they look at you. Allow yourself to feel it, then grieve it and leave it. How do you grieve it and leave it? Okay, you have to process that loss. What happened? Simply, stopping and taking a moment to debrief on your own. Like, what happened? Like, how did I get here? Because sometimes it's all a blur. Like, it all happened so fast and you were so sure it was going to work. When it didn't, it is all a blur. And it's like, what really happened? But we have to sit down and we have to sit with ourselves and figure out what we could have done differently. Is there anything, there might not have been, but is there anything that you would have done or could have done to have changed the outcome? What would you do next time if you were in this same situation? How would you avoid repeating this particular loss? Or sometimes it helps to think about what you learned from this process that can help somebody else. Sometimes we think that because we've invested so much in whatever it is that we want to win at, we take it as our own personal journey and our own personal win. And when we lose, it's our own personal defeat. But guess what? Sometimes some of your losses are able to be redeemed because they're not for you. They're for somebody else. Somebody's got to learn how to do it. And you were the one who learned how, so you could teach others how to do it. And once you do that, I call it processing your loss. Once you've processed your loss, that's all you need from that loss. That's all you need. You don't owe it anything else. You don't have to keep going back into that point in time. You don't have to keep allowing it to make you feel bad, or you don't have to have a whole pity party about it. Just process that loss. Learn what you would do differently next time when you're in that situation. A biggie for me is this. If you ever find yourself faced with a loss, do not make any big sudden decisions right on the heels of a loss. Stop. Take your time. Think about it. This is what happens a lot of times when we move from one bad relationship to another bad relationship. It's not that we say, hey, I've been in a bad relationship and I'm looking for another one, come this way. But what happens is we don't take the time to process or to heal. And then that makes us seek out something that looks like what we had before. You'll see situations, and we girls, we can just talk about it. So we're in a bad relationship. We finally get out. We really didn't want to be out. But when we finally get out, when it finally ends one way or the other, you're done or he's done, and it's finally over, we do grieve that loss because we feel it. Even if it was a bad situation, it's a situation that had become familiar to us. And what happens is, if we, as soon as that is over, go and try to find someone else, we end up looking for something that looks exactly like what we had that ended in defeat. It was a dead end. So yeah, we actually do look for losses without even knowing it. We link up with a new guy because he looks similar to the guy that we used to have. That's my type. He was tall and brown skinned, he had big muscles. Yeah, whatever. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that. But if you go out and you're looking for a replacement for what you had, then you'll probably get a replacement that's going to take you back into the same depths of pain that the original did. So that's what happens sometimes when we make sudden decisions based on a loss. If it's a relationship, that rebound guy generally does not end up being any better for us than the guy that he was helping us to heal from. Let me put it like that. If we go on and we do the same things that we've always done, the old saying is, if you always do what you always done, you'll always get what you've always gotten. And that is what happens when we go out and we make decisions and we do things on the spur of the moment to try to get better or to try to do over that little error. It generally does not work. We end up doing the exact same thing. We end up dating the same guy. We end up finding the same type of dead-end job. We end up doing the exact same thing, and then we're surprised when we end up in the same place. So no sudden moves, my sister friends, no sudden moves. We got to stop and take our times, recalibrate before we decide what our next move is after that loss. There's nothing wrong with keeping moving. There's nothing wrong with keeping life going, but don't make any sudden decisions based off of the loss that you've experienced, okay? Give yourself time to recover before you move on to that next thing. And then another thing that I want us to realize, that everyone takes an L at one point or another. Everybody is going to lose at some point. Think about your favorite athlete. Now, I am not a sports fan at all. I don't watch sports at all. I can tell you when the last time I watched sports was. It was back in the 90s when the Bulls was on their winning streak, and then they had won championships, and then all the guys was talking about it, and I wanted a boyfriend, so I had to watch sports so I could know what to talk to the guys about. That's the last time I watched sports. When they got the six-pack was the last time that I actively followed sports. So there it is. All right. So, but if you think about it, even Michael Jordan and all of his grandeur, I don't care who your favorite athlete is, they have all lost at one point in time or another. Think about your favorite singer. I don't care who it is, how perfect or melodious the voice is. At some point, they hit a bad note. At some point, they had a bad performance. At some point, they wrote a song that did not hit the top of the charts. Think about it. Every single song they made did not hit the top of the charts. They're not on top because they never lost or they never hit a bad note or their basket never missed the hoop, but they're on top because they kept perfecting their craft. Michael Jordan didn't stop trying to shoot three-pointers when one didn't go in. He just recalibrated, got the ball, got to the right spot, and did it again. They're not noteworthy because they were perfect, but they're noteworthy because they kept perfecting their craft, so their losses were not fatal, so that their losses were not the thing that you would immediately remember when you thought about their career. And the same thing can happen, and it's true for us. If we continue to work on and find out what we do well, and once you know what you do well, working on that and perfecting that, you can get to a point where your mistakes look purposeful. Sometimes when I am giving a lecture at, whatever place, I can totally misspeak. And because they expect me to be the authority in that room, they will actually believe that that is what I meant to say. And guess what? I don't tell them any different because you can portray yourself, or you can live in such a way, you can work on yourself, and you can be tenacious enough, and you can have enough fortitude that you work on what you do and do it so well that even when you do lose, even when you don't get it exactly right, it won't appear to be the story of your life. It'll just be a bump in the road at best, a glitch, but they'll understand that you have a certain quality of work that is not represented by your loss, but by your wins. And then I guess that brings me to this. How do we calculate a loss? Do you calculate losses in dollars and cents? Is it that you lose money on it, and so that's what makes it a loss? Do you calculate losses in time? If it wastes your time, or if it doesn't give you the best benefit of your time, is that what you consider to be a loss? Do you consider losses things that make you feel bad, or things that don't make you feel good? Do you calculate your losses in feelings? Think about what makes a loss to you. That's the only way that you're going to get a win, is figure out what makes that loss feel like a loss, because that's really what we're trying to do. We're trying to get at what it is that's going to fulfill us, and what it is that's going to make our lives feel more successful. So if you think about what makes a loss to you, then you might find out in the long run, you might discover that our losses really were not losses at all. When you felt like it was a loss, because I talked about that, I think last podcast, a friend I had whose restaurant did not survive, and he counted it as a loss. And I'm looking at it and going, no, that is not a loss. That gave you so many opportunities to learn so much more. And so sometimes we may find out, when we really think about how we calculate those losses, that they were not losses at all. Maybe they were opportunities for us to grow, opportunities for us to gain experience, and most importantly, opportunities for us to build our character. When we really think about it, maybe losing was the best opportunity yet. Maybe it was the greatest opportunity for us to learn how to truly win. You have been listening to the She Shines podcast, where we are empowering you to embrace every facet of who you are, helping you to develop a beautiful balance in life, and encouraging women everywhere to shine. If you are a woman who shines and you want to see someone else shine too, join the sisterhood at facebook.com/groups/She Shines podcast, and you can share the shine. To get instant updates on our podcast, subscribe on iTunes, Google Play Music, YouTube, or Spotify. I'm your host, Sharon Holmes. Until next time, shine on.